Alright guys, today we're going to talk about the Yamaha RH1C headphones. And before we get into them, talk about what led me to them real quick. And this kind of all started in this budget headphone stuff. All started with initially these, the Koss KPH30i. And of course, I heard about them through Z or Zeos. And then, just want to give them a try and just have a good, cheap headphone to carry around, take in the car, take around, whatever. If they get broke, it's not a big deal because they're cheap, whatever. And funny enough, these eventually did break. But I've had these, I think, for almost 3 years, 2 or 3 years now, and they've been used a lot. So I don't really hold it against them. For $30 headphones, I wouldn't say they're cheap. I would say they've held up quite well. And I reviewed these because I agreed with many other people. They sound absolutely incredible for 30 bucks. Still haven't found anything else out there really that'll beat them. And then when the Koss KPH30i Clear came out, I reviewed these as well. These also get used a lot. My wife and daughter always seem to have these and use them all the time. And then initially I got the original KPH30i's, liked them so much. I tried the next set of Koss, the KSC 75s, which are also, these are even cheaper. These are like 15 bucks and they sound just pretty much as good as the 30s, almost. Depending on who you are, some people like these better, some people like these better. They both sound very, very good. It's just these are half the price, but they do have these weird ear clips, so some people don't like those. But if you're a headphone person, you should definitely have both of those. And then later on, then the Clears came out, and I got the Clear. So I've got 3 sets of Koss that are very cheap and just awesome. So I started looking around. There's got to be somebody, if there's anybody else out there that has any cheaper headphones that are really good. Koss can't have the market cornered on this. So I seen these. These are the Yamaha as it started. Yamaha RH1Cs. They are a very retro-looking headphone. I'm gonna assume these came out in maybe the 90s or something, and they just never changed them. We'll untangle them here, unwrap them. I do like their very retro, 90s retro look. You could even maybe say 80s. They're a lot like the Koss. Just the ear pad, the on-ear is much bigger. So, like these are maybe a little bit smaller than your ear, or these are much bigger. So they really cover your whole ear. Both of them are very comfortable. These don't have the silicone band up there. That's more of just a Koss thing. But they have, for me, I have a pretty small head, so I wear them on the smallest setting, and then they fit perfectly fine. But they do obviously go much larger. They get quite huge if you got a big melon. But the clamping force is good enough versus their weight. Even without like a silicone band up here, they never seem to really go anywhere. I mean, it's a pretty good clamping force, but it's just plastic, so it's not like it's going to crush your head. And then the band is widened a little bit, so it doesn't dig into the top of your head. And then right and left indicators, nothing fancy in your typical click system. It is, for plastic, it is a pretty deliberate click. So you'll notice it, and it tends to stay where you set it, Yeah, and they are, let me go over this real quick, right here on the front. Travel light, wherever the music takes you. Open design for flexibility and comfort. Full dynamic range. Compatible with any audio device that has an auxiliary plug or a headphone jack, whatever you want to call it. And, well, I guess let's go finish where we started here. Get the light on it. There we go. Got bad lighting today. No, got a nice shadow of my phone there. Specifications, I don't like. They're only 91 dB sensitivity. They're not very sensitive. So even though they're only 32 ohm, they still take a little bit of power. Like, I test most of the stuff with my Galaxy S9, and even on that, it gets just loud enough for my liking. Could maybe go a touch louder on some music that's not as compressed. That takes a little more volume to get up louder or whatever. But the typical cell phone or typical device is going to have just enough power to get these loud. 32 ohms, frequency response 20 to 20 hertz. 8-foot cord's a longer cord, so if you don't want something with a really long cord, probably won't want to look for these. But if you want something like, I think Yamaha was expecting some musicians and stuff maybe use this where they want to sit at their piano or their guitar or keyboard and have some slack to move around as they play. Then you get the default is an 1/8 inch plug, or the smaller 3.5 millimeter, but it does include. See, it comes with the small right angle. Cord doesn't want to hold still. 3.5, and then they also include this little adapter, which most of your music and pro audio gear is probably going to have this. So it's nice to include the little adapter for you. And the cord is just this tiny little, basically zip cord, wire, with your basic just rubbery plastic retentions on the end. Nothing crazy, just standard stuff. And then those lead up right in, one on each side, into the phones, or whatever you want to call them. I wouldn't necessarily call them ear cups because they're not ear cups. But and then you can see here on the back, this bottom half is open. So it's a semi-open back design, I guess. When they're playing music, you can definitely hear sound come out of these. Even the KPH-30Is are a semi-open back. They're somewhat vented. But these are going to have more bleed, I guess they call it. When you got music going on and pretty loud, people around you are going to be able to hear what you're listening to. But yeah, I so far have enjoyed them. Getting to the sound quality portion of all this, right off the bat, they don't sound as good as any of the Koss I have. Even these were $18. I think the price on them varies, though. I think it probably floats around anywhere from, I'm going to say, around 12 to 20 or 12 to 18 bucks. So it's not expensive at all. But these, the KSC 75s, are almost always around 15 bucks. I've never seen them really any higher. These, other than their ear clip design, if you can tolerate that, these sound way better than these. Well, these aren't my cheapest Koss. Yeah, a review will be coming up on these. These are the Koss KTX Pro 1 Titaniums. Another headphone that probably hasn't changed since the 90s. But I think these you can find them for around 10 or 12 bucks sometimes. I'll speak to those later when I review them. But yeah, so these aren't the cheapest. They're still cheaper than the KPH-30Is, but not necessarily cheaper than the KSC 75s. Yada, yada, yada. Depends on what you're looking for. And realistically, these are also cheap, whether it's $10 or $15. I don't know if that really matters that much. Yeah, the sound out of the box was pretty flat, and I don't mean in a neutral, flat, like good way. I mean, they lacking, I would probably say lacking a touch of low end and a touch of high end. So they just seem kind of lifeless. So I just let them, I hooked them, I just left them plugged in and let music play on them for a while. So I'm not a huge proponent of burn-in or break-in necessarily, but it does seem like more with speakers or even headphones, the actual driver, since it is a physical moving device that the more it moves and shifts around, it could possibly, I don't break in. I don't know if it'd be enough to change the characteristics of the sound, but at least with these, because other stuff, like a lot of the Koss I get, since the first second I listened to them till now, they still sound the same. But for these ones, for some reason, when I first tried them out, they just seemed kind of really lifeless and flat. Not bad, no distortion or anything necessarily, but just kind of eh. So I left them sit and play music, and I think I probably maybe let music play on them for, I don't know, 4 or 6 hours or so, and just kept trying them and listening to different stuff off and on, and they did seem to come around a little bit, but they still weren't sounding really that good. Still kind of just lifeless sounding. Again, not much low end, below probably 100 hertz. I mean, it's there, but it doesn't have that transience and that, that little bit of impact or anything. And then the top end, probably above, I don't know, probably above 6 or 8K, just kind of seem kind of lifeless. So just all I had to do, and I've done it with 2 different programs. I've been using my Sound Blaster Play 3 as my budget computer DAC. It's just this little guy here. You can get these for like $20. You get a headphone, microphone jack, and a microphone jack. And then just plugs into your computer, and then you install the Sound Blaster software, which disappeared because I unplugged it. There, and you get the Sound Blaster software, and in here, and one of the options you get they call it SBX Pro Studio. If you turn that on, and then the crystallizer, this option right here, you can kind of see it causes it's like a default loudness button, basically, once you enable the crystallizer, because it brings up the low end and it brings up the high end a bit, and depending on how much you adjust the crystallizer, you can see how that goes up. So putting that on fixed most of it. It kind of, it creates that smiley EQ that a lot of people like, and bringing up the high end and the low end kind of brought them back to life. And then even turning on the bass, it enhances the bass a little bit. That helped. And then I have the bass frequency to cut off below 30 hertz because I don't need it to go down to 20. None of the music I listen to has bass down to 20 hertz. Most of it probably doesn't even have bass down to 30 hertz really. So cutting off them lower frequencies that either aren't there or that they're not going to reproduce well is only going to help. So, and then in the equalizer, I didn't need to bring up the highs at all, but just to kind of get that bottom end low bass, I had to pull up the very bottom at 31 hertz. I pulled it up 6 dB, and then at 62, 3 dB, and kind of just brought that bottom end up. And it doesn't make them muddy or sloppy in the low end, but it just they responded well to my adjustments, and I can't adjust them objectively because I don't have any way to measure headphones. So this is just going by basically what I was trying to do is I listened to the KPH-30Is for a short section of a song, and then switch back to these and just keep adjusting and adjusting, trying to get these to sound as much as I can like the KPH-30Is. And with these adjustments, it was pretty good. And I didn't need to use, obviously, since they're only 32 ohm, I didn't need to use the high gain or anything with them. But yeah, just these settings, they're still not as good as KPH-30Is, I don't think, but it got them a lot closer. So that is a plus, I guess, that they did respond to some EQing. it's hard to recommend them. I mean, you can't really recommend them over the KPH30Is, other than if you can only afford $18 and not $30, or if you just like Yamaha gear and you like the way these look, and you got big old man ears and you want headphones with bigger pads, fine. Um, and you can continue to EQ too. Like, you can keep pushing up the highs or the mids. They do seem to respond to EQing well over the whole frequency range, but it's just where I EQ'd them too. The only thing sound quality wise I didn't like about them is once you start to get them too loud, they do start to kind of fall apart, and you will notice a little bit of distortion. The bass does respond well to EQing, but it does run out at some point. These aren't going to shake your ears like some of my other headphones. So if you're a bass head, probably not. You probably won't want these. But I guess the KPH30Is really aren't bass cannons either. They put out plenty of bass, but if you want headphones that are gonna shake your head, these aren't gonna be it. But yeah, once you start to crank them up to their max, or at least as loud as like maybe a little bit above where I would comfortably listen regularly or all the time. Once you start getting beyond that, they do start to get a little bit distortion-y, or whatever you want to say. So that I don't count as a huge con, because I don't think most people are going to be listening to music on these that loud. So just take it into consideration, I guess. And then the other way I EQ'd them was with another computer program that everyone should have if you play music off a computer. This is Equalizer APO. It's a free program you can download off the internets. Pretty easy to set up, and I have a FX Audio DAC X6 right now. I have another headphone. I have a Topping DX3 Pro Plus coming, the new one. But the DAC X6 is holding up for now. And I got that set in Equalizer APO, and then in here, I can enable it here. You can see down here the increase in each end of the equalizer. I've pulled up starting at about 80 hertz on up, all the way up to about 30 hertz. I've pulled up, a couple dB, and then the same thing on each end. Starting on this end, starting at going between 8 and 10 kilohertz. Keep pulling it up a little bit, all the way up to 20 kilohertz, and it kind of brought that sparkle back to the high end, and brought up that warm, punchy part to the low end. And I don't seem like I've had to mess too much with the mid bass, mid range area. It seems to be satisfying, I guess. I don't think I need to adjust much of it. Just the bass and the treble. So doing this in EQ APO, if you don't have something like a Sound Blaster software to adjust, you can always use something like this and kind of get that life back. And I did the same thing on my phone. Most phones have, at least Samsung phones, I don't know about, well, no, LGs do too, have an equalizer built in, and you can just make these slight adjustments in the EQ on your phone with these, and it kind of brings back that sparkle. So, but if you don't want to have to EQ, you just want to plug your headphones into your device and use them, then these probably won't be for you. So, but if you don't mind EQing and fiddling around with them, you can get pretty darn good sound out of these. So that's going to be all for those. Overall, I like them, but I am not thoroughly impressed with them. I guess that's Koss's fault. If I got these before I tried any of the Koss, I'd probably be like, well, these sound great for $18 headphones, But now, since I've already tried a handful of the Koss stuff, now everything's gotta stack up to Koss. And so far, I haven't found anything really under, the kind of the price range Koss hangs out at. The bottom being those KTX Pros and the KSC 75s, hovering around 10 to 15 bucks. I haven't found anything that even comes close to beating them yet. So, but we'll keep trying. So, any comments or questions about these? I got them on Amazon. Whatever. Thanks for watching. See you later, guys.